I've been a strong believer in the notion that if somebody is willing to serve in our military, in uniform, putting their lives on the line for our security, that they should not be prevented from doing so because of their sexual orientation. I think it's worth noting that the overwhelming majority of Americans feel the same way. It's the right thing to do.
We're back. That was President Obama at last week's news conference. According to the Washington Post, a Pentagon study group on the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy has concluded that lifting the ban on gays in the military would not seriously harm the war effort. And a military survey shows that a majority of active duty and reserve forces do not care if gays are allowed to serve openly now. But the findings still may not be enough for Republicans to support a repeal of the policy. Dan Choi is an Iraq War veteran, thank you for your service, who was discharged from the Army National Guard this year after coming out. And Alex Nicholson was also discharged under the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. He's executive director of Service Members United, an advocacy organization for gay and lesbian military members and veterans. So let's try to talk about the unusual situation. Politicians tend to try to be ahead of the curve. Usually. They try to be smarter than the people because they want to get reelected and reelected and reelected and reelected. They like their jobs. Here we have a case where about 70% of the American people believe in open service. No more Don't Ask, Don't Tell. If you're gay, you say so, you serve, no problem. They're for that. And that's really moved up over the last several years, right? How come the politicians haven't kept up with the people? Why do we still have a problem getting this past the Senate?
I think it's a political issue.
Why is it a problem if the majority want it? Why do a majority or at least half the Senate not want it?
Well, I think when I talk about what my military service was, and when I talk about wanting to serve, there are certainly many benefits of serving. There are many fringe things on the other sides, the idea of service. And I think some politicians think in very different ways from their people at times. They think that gay issues sometimes are a difficult political issue. And I think for anybody to make promises, like President Obama did, and not take action.
Okay, you're going in your direction. Go in my direction. Why is it a problem getting it through the Congress? Because I just read the Constitution. On this point, the Congress has the right to raise and support armies. Congress has the fundamental power over the Army.
Okay.
According to the Constitution.
So the direction
power
you
to
want
raise,
to go
no,
is...
I'm asking you is why can't the Congress go with the American people on this issue politically? What's holding them up? Why are no Republicans aboard this thing, getting rid of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell? Why don't they raise their hand and say, of course I'm for open service. The American people are for it overwhelmingly. Why don't the Republicans join the Democrats on this?
Well, I don't speak for any particular political party.
But I'm asking you to analyze this issue.
In my analysis, I don't need to understand exactly why a certain politician votes a certain way. I just need to know that currently under the law, I'm not allowed to tell the truth. Right. And I'm not an equal citizen. I come back from war in Iraq and I'm treated as a second-class citizen. People take polls about whether I'm popular or not. I think that's an insult, and that's what I'm focused on. That might not be your direction, but I think it's very clear.
My question is to try to understand why you haven't done it.
Whether it's Congress or it's the president, these people are leaders who are elected.
Right.
And then we all know that politics is war with no blood. War is politics with the blood. Why is it that in politics we realize that there are consequences but we don't act on them?
Well, my question is, why wouldn't a politician who is self-interested, why wouldn't he or she obey the will of the people? It would be in their self-interest to do it.
Well, there is a lack of courage. And I think that's one thing that, especially on this day, we can take
Why is there courage in the Democratic Party, not in the Republican Party?
Well, I don't think that there's courage when you talk about politicians who are simply politicians. I think when you talk about courage...
Well, just a minute. We have 58 Democrats now in the Senate. They're counting on almost all of them going in that direction. But it ain't 60. I want to go to you, Alex, on this question. What's the problem?
I think, to go back to your larger point here, I think we've really lost part of our principle of civilian control of the military. It doesn't matter if you look at Congress, the courts.
They think the general supervisor, the commandant of the Marines, he says something, it's out in the public record, they hang their hat on that.
They defer way too much to the military judgment on this. You're right. Congress has the power to raise and support armies. The majority of the American people are in support of repealing this law. Congress needs to act to do it.
It seems like they're hiding behind, I understand your passion, you served your country. I wasn't over there, you did. Let me ask you this. Why are they hanging their hat on? Well, there'll be a report. You see the report's leaked. That's not good enough. They want to have hearings now on the report. And they want to make sure that they run out the clock. And they're going to run out the clock this year. Next year, it's a Republican Congress. You say politics, this is something you get into. It's going to be a lot harder for a Republican Congress to do it. What do you think? What do you think? You first.
It's not about whether a mission
Why don't
is difficult.
They do it?
It doesn't matter whether it's considered difficult or hard. It's a matter of doing the right thing.
When you talk like this, okay, when you talk like this to members of the Senate, if you get in a room with them, what do they say? What do the Republicans say when you get tough like this with them?
To me. I know
well,
that
they get
when
the vote.
you talk about the gay community and the disappointment that we have, it's not just a disappointment in one party. I know that equality, if it is
well, how do you
only
blame
to
the Democrats if every
one...
single one of them in the Senate voted your way? How do you blame them?
I didn't get what you're saying.
If every single one of them votes to get rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, isn't that enough for you?
Well, when you think about the people who have made promises to us, I think there's a lot more that the president can do.
Okay, what can he do? What can he do?
Before the cloture vote, I think it would have been wonderful if he would have called a single senator rather than just calling a sports team in Seattle. I think if the president is going to make these promises, he needs to put his money where his mouth is.
Okay, how does he get a Republican to vote your way?
I think he's the president of the United States, and he has much more power than I do.
Well, let me tell you how the country works. You sort of uphold the Constitution. You know it as well as I do. The Congress gets to decide these issues. They passed the Don't Ask, Tell law. They got to repeal it.
I think it really helped if the president did stop the discharges.
Can he do that legally?
I think he can. And additionally,
I've been looking this up. How does the president ignore the will of Congress?
When you talk about what is unconstitutional, and the courts say that Don't Ask, Don't Tell is unconstitutional, number one, I don't think the president should have
appealed. Well, the lower court did, but this hasn't reached its way up to the...
Is it unconstitutional is the question. And why can the president not just say what he knows is true, that it is unconstitutional?
Because he took the same oath you did to observe the Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court hasn't ruled yet.
The oath is
he cannot honor
what?
Pardon me?
The oath is to what? The oath is to
support the Constitution
against all foreign and domestic enemies. And I think when you talk about discrimination that's unjust in the military,
that's your opinion.
It is
but this is we have to get the courts to rule on that.
And they have.
I mean, yelling
There's
loud,
no reason why you need to appeal it.
Please yell loud, but it's not going to solve the problem. And by the way, I'm with your passion because you've been there. I haven't been there. Your thoughts, Alex, he's a pretty strong-minded guy on this. Are you that strong-minded? Do you believe the president can just do it willfully, just say it?
I think Dan's larger point that the president needs to get more actively involved in advocacy on this issue is a very valid point.
Good point. He ran on it, he should have made.
But you know, we do have a couple of
I'm not sure he can do this stuff by... Who are they?
Susan Collins is where
you don't have her. You don't have her yet.
We do have her to go if it's structured right. Senator Reid's got to bring it up.
I know. If it's structured right, blah, blah, blah.
It's the truth.
When I see them vote for it, those two Republicans, Voinovich and her, I'll believe it. Voinovich said today he's not going to do it. Anyway, he said he's not going to do it. We got the statement. It's a tough fight. Dan Choi, Alex Nicholson.